When Mason Weaver pulled off the highway and saw the flickering neon sign that read Hollow Pines Inn, he thought he'd hit a stroke of luck. It was past midnight, rain was falling hard, and his eyes were stinging from hours on the road. Out, the place looked old, but not abandoned. 2 stories high, faded green paint, and a crooked welcome mat at the front door. A small bell above the entrance jingled as he stepped in. The lobby smelled like aged carpet and lemon cleaner. Behind the counter stood a woman in her late 50s, wearing a name tag that read Cynthia. She barely looked up from her ledger. "Room?" she asked. "Yeah," Mason said. "Just for the night." She slid a key across the counter. A real key, not a card. "Room 313, she said. "End of the hall. No elevator." Mason hesitated. "That's kind of an unlucky number, isn't it?" Cynthia looked at him then. Her eyes were pale, tired, and utterly unreadable. "It's available," she replied flatly. He forced a polite smile, grabbed the key, and made his way upstairs. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. The carpet changed color halfway down, from burgundy to a dull gray, and the air got colder with every step. When he reached room 313, the door creaked open before he turned the key. "Must be the wind," he muttered. The room inside was plain: bed, nightstand, old TV, and a lamp with a crooked shade. A Bible lay on the desk, already open to a page Mason couldn't quite read. He set his bag down, took off his jacket, and collapsed onto the bed. Just as he started to drift off, a sound, faint, rhythmic. Knock, knock, knock. He sat up. It was coming from the inside of the closet. He stood, hesitant, and walked toward it. "Hello?" he asked. Silence. He opened the door. Nothing. Just his reflection in the long mirror on the back wall. Not a mirror, a window. From the other side, someone was staring back. Mason stumbled back from the closet, heart pounding. That wasn't a mirror, it was a window, a grimy pane of glass mounted inside the closet wall. On the other side, someone had been standing there, watching. But now, it was empty. Just darkness. He pressed closer, squinting. Was it another room? Some maintenance passage? He knocked on the glass once, lightly. No answer. But as he turned to leave, something tapped back. 3 slow, deliberate knocks from the other side. Knock, 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 Mason froze. "Screw this," he whispered, backing out of the closet and slamming the door shut. He picked up his bag, ready to leave, but paused when he saw the hallway through the peephole. Pitch black, no lights, no sound. He opened the door anyway, and stopped cold. Where the hallway had stretched before, now there was only a brick wall, not just blocking the path, replacing it. No signs of construction, no tools. Just a solid brick wall where a hallway should be. Mason turned around to see if he'd gotten turned around disoriented. But the room number on the door said it clearly, 313. He tried to call the front desk, no dial tone. Tried his cell phone, no signal. Then, as if mocking him, the ancient TV buzzed to life with static. He hadn't touched the remote. A flicker of movement showed on the screen. Not a program, not a show, a live feed. From the inside of his closet, a figure was now standing there. Tall, still, backlit in red. He bolted for the door, yanking it open, but the hallway was no longer brick. It had changed again. Now it was endless, long, lined with doors that all read the same number, 313. And behind him the closet door creaked open. Mason's breath caught in his throat as the closet door swung open behind him. Slow, silent. He turned, every nerve in his body screaming to run, but his legs wouldn't move. There, in the shadow of the closet, stood the figure he'd seen on the TV. He was tall, wearing a deep red coat that looked soaked, no, dripping, as if it had just come from the rain. But there had been no rain in the room. No wet footprints, no storm now outside the window either. The man's face was obscured beneath a wide-brimmed hat, His posture was unnatural, tilted slightly as if the bones inside were misaligned. Mason backed away, into the hallway now filled with doors labeled 313. He looked to his right, door 313. To his left, another 313. No end, no stairs, no lobby. He tried the nearest doorknob. Locked. Another. Locked. Behind him, the man in red took a slow step out of the closet. His boots didn't make a sound. Mason ran. Down the corridor, past door after door, each identical, each mocking. He spotted one slightly ajar and dove in, slamming it shut behind him. Same layout, same bed, same closet, same open Bible, except this time the words were in a language Mason had never seen. They moved on the page like they were breathing. He grabbed the Bible, but it seared his skin and he dropped it, a welt already forming on his palm. From the hallway, faint footsteps. Slow, measured. Getting closer. He braced himself behind the door, heart racing, trying to think, what was this place? Then his eye caught something scratched into the wall behind the curtain. You can't check out, you can only change rooms. Suddenly, a loud bang at the door. He held it shut with all his weight, but it was opening anyway, slowly, steadily. The man in red wasn't forcing it. He was just invited. The door creaked open, as if Mason's hands weren't even there. The man in red stepped inside, silent as ever. But he didn't approach. He stood just inside the threshold, as though waiting. Watching. Mason backed toward the window. What do you want? He rasped. The man tilted his head slightly, and the overhead light flickered. Mason could finally make out the lower half of his face, smiling. Not warmly, not cruelly, just endlessly. Then Mason noticed something. His feet hadn't crossed the doorframe. Was he unable to enter fully? The scratch warning flashed in Mason's mind again. You can't check out. You can only change rooms. But that wasn't the only thing scratched into the wall. Just below it, do not speak to him. Do not invite him in. Mason's mouth went dry. He hadn't spoken to the figure, but his earlier, what do you want, might have been enough. The man took one more step inside, and then, in a blink, he was gone. Not faded, not vanished, just no longer there. Mason grabbed the lamp and yanked the cord from the wall. He needed to find an exit, some way out, anything. The hallway outside had changed again. Now it was flooded ankle-deep in water, black and still. The light fixtures above were swinging gently, dripping. No sound of running water, just stillness, like the aftermath of a drowning. He stepped in. The icy water numbed him immediately. Every door he passed, 313, every door locked, until one stood open. He entered. The room was upside down. The bed, the chair, even the lamp clung to the ceiling, as if gravity had flipped. But Mason stood upright somehow, in the impossible space. Then the phone rang. An old rotary phone, sitting on the ceiling floor. Ringing. Once, twice, 3 times. Mason knew he shouldn't, but something inside, some deep, desperate hope, made him reach up and answer it. He lifted the receiver. Silence. Then a voice, female, panicked and whispering, "Don't trust the mirrors. Don't let him." Click. Behind him, water dripped. But there was no water in the room. Just red footprints, leading to the closet. Mason stared at the red footprints leading to the closet. They shimmered faintly, like they weren't made of blood or paint, but something alive, thick, pulsing, still warm. The room was silent except for the faint ticking of the ceiling lamp. He took one hesitant step toward the closet, compelled by something beyond logic. Kriak! The closet door began to open, by itself. He froze. Inside was not clothing, not shelves, just space. A long, narrow tunnel stretched behind the closet. The red footprints continued inside, vanishing into shadow. He stepped closer, feeling the cool air radiating from within. The tunnel seemed impossible. It should have led straight into the hallway, but instead it sloped downward. He had a choice: stay in a room that bent reality more by the second, or go deeper. He entered the tunnel. Each step echoed behind him, twice, once from his feet and once delayed, as if someone was walking a moment behind him. Then whispers. Dozens of them, male, female, children, crying, laughing, screaming. Oh, all overlapping, all from the walls. He sped up. The tunnel opened into a narrow room lit by a single swinging light bulb. On the far wall, a giant mirror. But not his reflection. No, the mirror showed room 313. And inside it, Mason saw himself, sitting on the bed. Still, pale, staring blankly ahead. He reached out to touch the glass, confused. His reflection did not move. Instead, it turned his head toward him. Its mouth opened wide, unnaturally wide, and whispered, "You left the door open." Suddenly, footsteps behind him, real ones. Fast. He spun around. The man in red stood at the mouth of the tunnel, tilting his head once again. But this time, he wasn't smiling. He raised his hand and pointed toward the mirror. Mason looked back. Now inside the mirror, the closet door in room 313 was open again, and stepping out of it was himself. Another Mason, smiling, or wearing the red coat. Mason stumbled backward, heart pounding. The version of him inside the mirror grinned wider, tilting its head in perfect mimicry of the man in red. It stepped forward through the reflection as if the glass were water. There was no shatter, no resistance, just a rippling slip from one world into another. Now there were two Masons in the narrow room, one breathless, terrified, one smiling, calm, wrong. "Who are you?" Mason whispered. The other him didn't answer with words. He stepped closer and said with Mason's own voice, "Only one of us gets to leave." Suddenly the mirror behind him snapped to black. No reflection, no room, just darkness. Then a faint image returned, of the hotel lobby, the exit, people walking outside in the sun. Freedom! Mason ran toward the mirror, but the other him lunged. They crashed to the ground, grappling in the flickering light. The man in red merely watched from the tunnel's edge, unmoving, as if this was the outcome he had waited for all along. Mason landed a punch, but it felt like hitting wet sand. The other version melted slightly under the blow, shifting unnaturally before reforming, stronger. Whispers filled the room again. Choose, choose, choose. Mason wrestled for control, managing to pin the other's arm down just long enough to crawl toward the mirror. He reached up, pressed his palm against the surface. Warm, solid. The image rippled again, like a living membrane. He pushed harder. But something pulled at his ankle. The other Mason's hand. "No," the doppelganger hissed. "I belong there, not you." Mason kicked hard, once, twice, until the grip loosened. With a final lunge, he plunged through the mirror. Light exploded around him. Sun, air, people. He collapsed onto the lobby carpet, gasping. Behind him, the mirror snapped shut. Hotel staff rushed over. "Sir, are you all right?" Mason turned, barely able to speak. But behind the concierge desk, a wall of room keys glinted. Every tag read 313. And behind the glass door of the lobby, his reflection stood still. Smiling, Mason staggered to his feet. The sunlight pouring through the lobby windows was real, warm, golden. Cars drove past on the street. People laughed as they sipped coffee at a cafe across the road. He was out. He was free. But something felt wrong. The hotel staff seemed pleasant, but distant. They smiled too long. Their eyes didn't blink enough. One man at the front desk simply whispered to himself, over and over, as he polished a key labeled 313. Mason turned toward the glass doors, eager to leave. But as he stepped outside, his reflection in the door didn't follow. It stayed still, smiling, wearing the red coat. A tremor crawled up his spine. He took a step back. The reflection didn't. It stared at him like a caged thing, hungry. Then it moved, on its own. It lifted a hand, slowly, purposefully, and placed its palm against the glass. Words fogged across the surface from its breath. "You left something behind." Mason spun around and ran, out of the hotel, into the street, not stopping for blocks. Eventually, he collapsed at a bus stop. His hands trembled as he checked his phone. One new voicemail. Unknown number. He played it. Static. Then, "You never checked out. We're just waiting for your room to be ready again." Click. A bus pulled up, hissing to a stop. He boarded, desperate to put distance between him and that place. He sat by the window and closed his eyes. But when he opened them again, the view outside hadn't changed. It was the same street, the same cafe, the same hotel. They hadn't moved at all. He stood and turned to the driver. There was no one there. Just an empty seat. And from the bus's speakers, a voice echoed, "Room 313, now available." Mason turned back toward the front entrance of the hotel and saw himself. Another Mason, entering the lobby, wearing the red coat, this time not smiling. Mason stumbled off the bus, which vanished the moment his feet hit the pavement, as if it had never existed at all. The world around him seemed to breathe, bending subtly. The sidewalk pulsed under his feet. The clouds above swirled too perfectly, like brush strokes on canvas. Even the cafe's customers were frozen mid-laugh. This wasn't the world he knew. This was a copy. He turned back to the hotel. Its facade had changed. The sign now read, "The In-Between." A new concierge waited by the door, smiling gently. His face was almost familiar, like Mason had seen him in a dream. In his gloved hand, he held a single brass key. Room 313. "Welcome back," the concierge said warmly. "We've kept your room just as you left it." "I'm not staying," Mason snapped. "This isn't real. This is some kind of trap." "But you forgot something," the man said. "You left something. A piece of you." He turned the key between his fingers. The numbers etched into it shimmered, then changed. 731, 137, 313. Mason's head spun. Numbers reversed, mirrored, repeating. "You must take the key," the man said, "or the room will never let you go." Mason looked down at his hands. They were changing. Fingertips turning gray, translucent. Veins becoming faint outlines. He was fading. He had crossed a threshold, escaped the room physically, but not entirely. The room still owned part of him. "What happens if I don't go back?" Mason asked. The concierge didn't answer directly. Instead, he stepped aside and pointed to the lobby mirror. It reflected nothing. No room, no people, just darkness. "You'll wander here," the concierge said softly, "between realities. A whisper in a place no one hears." Mason stared at the key. His own reflection stepped into view again. Red coat, vacant eyes. The other him extended a hand, offering the same key. A sick realization dawned on Mason. He'd done this before. Many times. The ritual repeated. One Mason leaves. One must stay. "Choose," the concierge whispered. "The room needs a guest." Mason clutched the key. It was warm in his hand now, alive like it had a pulse. Inside the hotel, the lobby expanded unnaturally. Chandeliers hung too low, hallways branched at wrong angles. The smell of lavender and rot clung to everything. He moved forward as if dragged. The man in the red coat, his doppelganger, led the way, walking just a few feet ahead, never turning back. Their footsteps echoed in sync. Mason passed by the front desk again. The wall behind it was covered in photographs, faded black and white. Each one showed a guest, standing in the window of room 313, staring blankly at the camera. Some were centuries old. At the top of the wall, the guest list. He leaned closer and gasped. In the center of the display, freshly pinned, was a photo of him, smiling. But his eyes were gone. Two hollow black voids stared back. Mason dropped the key. The metal clattered, but no sound came out. Just a soft whimper, like a child crying through a wall. He turned to run, but the hotel shifted. Hallways spun, doors rearranged. The walls pulsed as if breathing. Mason crashed into a stairwell that hadn't been there before. At the top, a door marked 313. The doppelganger waited beside it. "You forgot your key," he said, holding it out. "You always do." "I'm not going back," Mason growled. "Then someone else will have to," the reflection whispered. "The room doesn't care which of us stays, only that it isn't empty." Suddenly, Mason felt a sharp pain in his chest, like something was being pulled from him. A fog drifted down the hallway. Whispers echoed all around. Other voices. Other Masons. Some crying, some laughing, some begging. He was not the first. He would not be the last. The door to room 313 creaked open by itself. A warm, golden light spilled out. Inside, something waited. Smiling. Mason's hand trembled as he reached for the door handle of room 313. The golden light inside pulsed like a heartbeat, beckoning him closer despite every instinct screaming to run. Pushing the door open, he stepped inside. The room looked ordinary. Soft carpet, a single bed with white sheets, a dresser, and a window overlooking the city. But the air was thick, heavy with unspoken secrets. On the bed lay an old journal, its leather cover cracked and worn. Mason picked it up and flipped through the pages. They were filled with frantic scrawls, accounts from past guests who had checked into room 313 and never checked out. One entry caught his eye. "The room feeds on time, on memory, on the soul. It traps us between moments. Never here, never gone. Escape is a myth, and the mirror is just a door to a deeper prison." Another page read, "The man in red is not the owner, but a warden, an echo of those trapped before. Every guest leaves a part of themselves behind, becoming a piece of the room's eternal puzzle." Suddenly, a whisper curled around Mason's ear. "You belong here now." He spun around, heart pounding. The bed sheets stirred as if someone invisible had just left them. Mason realized with a sinking feeling. The room wasn't just a trap. It was alive, breathing, waiting, and it wanted him. The window darkened, showing a reflection of the hotel lobby, not the city outside. Outside the door, footsteps approached. Mason's breath caught. The door handle began to turn. The door creaked open, slowly. Mason's heart hammered in his chest as he stood frozen, clutching the journal like a lifeline. A figure stepped inside, dressed in a crimson coat. But unlike Mason's doppelganger, this one's eyes were cold and hollow. "Welcome," the figure said, voice smooth as silk but sharp as a blade. "You've finally found the room's secret." Mason swallowed hard. "Who are you?" "I'm the one who waits," the figure said, smiling with a chilling calmness. "The first, the last, the eternal guest." The man took a step closer, and Mason noticed his skin was pale, almost translucent, veins faintly visible beneath. "You think you escaped," he continued, "but you only delayed the inevitable. The room always calls back its guests." Mason glanced down at the journal. "It's alive. It feeds on us." The figure nodded. "And now it feeds on you." Suddenly the lights flickered. Whispers rose again, louder and more urgent. The journal slipped from Mason's hands and opened by itself. A new entry appeared in the familiar scrawl. "The newcomer arrives. The game begins anew." The figure extended a hand. "Come, there's a place for you here." Mason felt a coldness creeping through his veins. He had to decide, Fight or surrender. Behind him, the window's reflection morphed, showing countless trapped souls, faces twisted in despair. Time was running out. Mason's breath hitched as the cold hand reached for his wrist. He wrenched free, heart pounding like thunder. "I won't stay," he gasped. "I refuse to be part of this nightmare." The figure in red smiled, slow, cruel. "The room doesn't ask, it takes." Suddenly, the walls around Mason began to ripple, dissolving into shadows and whispers. The hotel lobby stretched infinitely in all directions, and trapped souls reached out, their hollow eyes begging. Mason sprinted toward the door, but it slammed shut before he could escape. Desperation clawed at him. The journal in his hand flared with light. He flipped to the last page. A hastily scrawled note read, "To break the cycle, leave behind what the room desires, most your fear." Mason closed his eyes, summoned every ounce of courage. He whispered, "I'm not afraid." The shadows recoiled. The red-coated figure faltered. The room trembled, cracking like glass. The door burst open. Sunlight flooded in. Mason stumbled out into the real world, heart pounding, gasping for breath. Behind him, the hotel shimmered and faded, no longer a trap but a forgotten ruin. He looked down at his hand. The key to room 313 lay cold and inert. He had checked out. For good.